Hi everyone, Angela Ward and Mag here, just doing a quick update this evening in relation to what's been going on in the campaign. So you will have heard already the announcement, no doubt, by Charlie McConalogue that Darragh Breen has elected to increase the cap by 10%. Obviously the speculation in relation to this has been circulating for the past few weeks, and government continues to do what they've always done, and that is to kite fly. So when this discussion of the possibility of the caps being raised a year after the scheme, when this conversation started circulating several weeks ago, the MAG committee set out the issues to Paul Ford, who is the chairperson of the expert group. And it is this expert group, of which Paul Ford is chairperson, that advises the minister in relation to the rates and the cap. So we set out to him, and in phone calls with homeowner liaison John O'Connor, in no uncertain terms, that there are very serious issues in relation to the operation of the DCB scheme, which is leaving homeowners thousands of euros in debt, or indeed preventing them from progressing through the scheme at all. So what we had said was the rates assigned to the scheme don't reflect the reality of what homeowners have been confronted with. So when we have this big announcement by Charlie McConalogue on behalf of Darragh Breen of this revision in the cap upwards, we already have a scheme that doesn't reflect the prices that homeowners are having to meet. Then we have the significant lag between the SSCI assessments and the revision of rates, which means that the grants that are being prescribed are out of step with the actual costs that homeowners are faced with. Now you need to remember as well that cap of 420 was set in 2021. That was 2 years before the revised scheme was implemented, and that's 3 years to the current date. There has been no adjustment which takes into account the rampant construction inflation witnessed in the last 3 years. Based on the SSCI DCB assessments in the last 2 years, between 22 and 24, there has been construction inflation of over 20% alone. Okay. The next point that we raised was that when you take out, or when you deduct the 20,000 for accommodation and storage, the current cap essentially means that anyone who's trying to build back a home that is over 206 square metres is going to breach the cap and will have to incur additional debt in order to finish and restore their home. Then in addition to that, we set out that homeowners don't have sufficient cash flow to upfront the fees and the deposits, and therefore they can't progress. And all of this, when there has been a BPFI proposal submitted to Darragh Breen and sitting on his desk since September 23 to introduce a revolving cash flow mechanism to try and eliminate this issue. So given the evidence of the real cost that homeowners are facing to restore their homes, we said to the expert group, we said to Paul Ford, we put it to John O'Connor, that there is no other alternative but to recommend to the Minister of Housing that the rates and caps are increased by the maximum 10% allowable, because it was in the Minister's remit to increase it by a lesser amount, but that it has to be increased by a maximum of 10%. And most importantly, and this is really significant for all the people who have commenced their homes already, that there needs to be a retrospective alignment to all homeowners who have accessed the scheme to date. So MAG's position is that it's unequivocally necessary that the powers that be do the right thing on the rates and retrospective payments to ensure that those who have had to move on ahead aren't penalised financially. Okay, so that correspondence has taken place, and we're going to continue to work on that cross campaign. So next up is the downgraded homeowners. You'll know that MAG have been working with this group for quite a while now, and over the last couple of weeks, members of MAG, together with Paddy and with Joy, have twice met the group now. It's clear from our engagement that this quite large group of homeowners, that what has been happening is essentially that we have engineers employed by the housing agency and paid by government overturning the professional recommendation of their colleague IS 465 chartered engineers, who are all under the same Engineers Ireland umbrella. and they're being downgraded in favour of quick and cheaper options that don't observe the science. And they're being downgraded without repercussion to those engineers, because on the report it is clearly stated that they cannot be held accountable for their recommendation in the event of a failure. So there's a few things here. Those engineers will likely say that they are taking their brief from the Department of Housing via the Housing Agency, but that argument's null and void, given that engineers registered with Engineers Ireland have to take into account the latest technological and scientific evidence and advances. I was actually shocked that Damien Owens proclaimed to the Redress Party in their meeting this week that he wasn't aware that pyrrhotite was included in the ministerial guidelines. The Minister has directed that this iron sulphide is taken into consideration, yet out of the dozens upon dozens of homeowners who were downgraded, not one reference to pyrrhotite or any other iron sulphide or ISA was made in their reports, in their downgraded reports. In fact, most of those original reports are now over 4 years old. And engineers who are employed by the Housing Agency see it appropriate to sit at a desk, because in not one instant did they visit the home or take account of the damage to date, despite Damien Owens having said in our Oireachtas Housing Committee meeting in May that where there is a difference of opinion in relation to the two groups of engineers, then the most favourable and safest to the homeowner should be abided by. So I'm calling on Damien Owens to instruct his members that if they proceed with being in breach of their code of ethics by undermining their colleagues and their profession, by failing to take account of the science, and by failing to do due diligence and instead simply recommending lesser cost options that will fail and cause unimaginable harm to homeowners, society and to the public purse, that consequences will be imposed. Now, MAG are joining other arms of the campaign in standing in solidarity with homeowners who are at the sharp end of this. And make no mistake about it, this is the direction of travel, because if they can do this to people that have engineers' reports, petrographic, laboratory tests, scientific evidence and professional opinion, imagine what they will do when it comes to new applicants to the scheme with nothing more in their hand than a BCA. So there's a protest currently in the pipeline, and this is going to be the start of a series of direct action against those who are involved in this unethical, immoral and potentially criminal decision-making process. Now, and just to stay with the science for a minute, many of you will have seen the article in that magazine, Construction Management Magazine, I think it's called, earlier on this month in September, that completely misrepresents and oversimplifies the structural failure of Donegal buildings and attributes that failure to freeze-thaw, a long since discredited hypothesis. So we have asked that we formally asked the publication retract that misleading information, because we have to counter this that's going out into the public domain, and to replace it with a scientifically accurate article based on peer-reviewed evidence. It's beyond me how any engineer could put his name to that which was reported as fact in that article, and how an editor could let that slip through. So moving on. With regard to the NSAI, MAG have sought answers from Geraldine Larkin, CEO. Okay, so we've asked, is the review currently being conducted part of the interim statement, or is it the full IS 46 review, or is it both? And the response we got was that work on drafting an interim statement is underway and will take the form of an amendment to IS 465. The amendment aims to enhance the sampling and testing protocols within the standard, taking account of all available findings to date, including the initial research output relating to internal sulphate attack. We asked for the timeline of both the interim statement and the full IS 465 review. So we were told that they're planning to, or aiming to, publish a public consultation draft of the amendment to IS 465 towards the end of Q3 24. And obviously that this effort is going to be dependent on consensus being met by the members of the TC 63 committee, and the completion of the whole NSAI editing process before it goes out to public consultation. We asked how it would be put to public consultation. So the process to complete the standards development will take 6 months following the conclusion of the consideration of any relevant research data. So this 6-month timeline then includes a further public consultation period and the committee's subsequent consideration of any submissions in parallel with their own deliberations before finalising their review findings and recommendations. The draft standard documents will be made available in order to gather comments from as wide an audience as possible, and that we'll be able to read the full draft clause by clause and leave comments, suggestions and so on about what should be incorporated into the final version of the standard document. Then we asked, have the research papers presented at the ICISR conference in Canada in May 24, had those research papers into internal sulphate attack been circulated to all of those involved in the IS 465 review, in order that they are informed by the very latest international research finds into this issue. And, you know, given that there was 7 of these papers presented directly in reference to ISA in Ireland, and the response to that was yes, the ICISR conference proceedings were made available to NSAI TC63 committee members, right? So they have all of that information. And other updates, MAG has formally requested a response from the County Council Executive and from the chair of the DCC committee as to MAG's attendance at these meetings, because we are not sure what our position is there at the minute. Finally then, there's an SAI information evening for DCB homeowners in the Gateway Hotel, the Innishin own Gateway, on the 23rd of September at 7 p.m. Now that needs to be booked online, and you can find the ad and the QR code in our socials. So that's this evening's update. Sorry it went over a little too long. Have a good Sunday. Chat soon.